Welcome back to War Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta coming to you on this beautiful Tuesday night from Wyoming, Minnesota. Just absolutely gorgeous outside. 1 week from free agency, Anthony. 2 weeks before we go to Spain. And do you know what's in 4 days?
4 days. 3 days away from our next live show. No. 10 days away from Spain.
All right, no, here we go. This is, so here's
yeah, I do remember this.
So Anthony goes to me today at 5:08, so less than 2 hours ago. Do you want to join the Donkeys, which is what he calls all his friends, for bocce tournament on Friday night? We have an odd number and could use one more guy. And I said, it's the draft Friday night, so I'm going to be at the practice facility that night and all day Saturday. He goes, draft, ? I go, yeah, the NHL draft. And then he goes, oh. So this podcast will not be breaking down the NHL draft, apparently.
Well, the Wild don't have a pick on Friday.
That's true, and they barely have any on Saturday.
On Saturday. It is a big bocce ball tournament, so I thought maybe you'd like to hang out with all the donkeys.
It is kind of ridiculous that I'm going to be hanging out at the practice facility when they don't have a first-round pick.
You could do the same job from our backyard.
That is true, and I do have a colleague in Joe Smith, so I could just have him go down.
And Chad Graff will be there, so he could help you out.
Well, maybe I at least come after.
Yeah,
after I tweet out the Wild didn't trade for a first-round pick. See ya.
So they did nothing all night, and I sat at the practice facility.
But Bill Guerin and Judd Brackett are available after that so far draft where they have not made it. We don't know if they're going to make a trade or trade into the first round. So we'll see. But it would be tragic if I was playing bocce ball and all of a sudden the Wild trade for like the fifth pick.
I'm trying to remember. There was a time you were at a Sunday dinner and something happened where you had to go write a story. I have no recollection of
I do remember
what it was. There was I think maybe it was a trade deadline or something.
Kemper was in a contract dispute and signed right before camp, something like that. It was something like that.
I know there was a time where you had to leave the table to borrow a computer, and Chad was there, and at the time covering the Wild for the rival paper,
and he didn't
have a computer. So
that's exactly right. I brought my laptop. I think
he wrote something on his phone and texted it to somebody or something.
Yeah, it was exactly right. I did bring my laptop here to this podcast. It's in my car just in case I get the text that something happened. So we'll see.
We've had some distractions in the LaPanta household lately. The Tournament of Donkeys Classic is this weekend, so the family's all in town. Had a wedding a couple of weekends ago, so we've had like some stuff going on where I've been paying attention to the draft.
That's a good point, and yet that somehow doesn't stop you from going out to the golf course every day. So
that's during the day. Then I have high stress things at night.
So we are 1 week from free agency, 3 or 4 days from the draft. Again, we don't know what's going to happen. There are a lot of teams that are offering the Wild first-round picks for 2025 in some sort of Rossi package. I definitely think that Bill Guerin has no desire to do anything like that. If he got a first-round pick in a package, I think he would want it to be a 2026 because, one, then you at least pick it, or you could have an entire year to try to drive up the value and trade it. If you trade for a 2025 pick right now, you have like 2 days to try to flip it. And the Wild, especially in a crummy draft, don't really have any need for that first-round pick. So we will see what happens. In terms of Rossi and where things are at right now, there continues to be a lot of conversation. They're still in tire-kicking mode. I just talked to somebody on the way here from Rossi's side of things. It says things have been completely quiet on their end, no contract negotiations. They're just sort of waiting for a potential trade. We'll see. As we discussed on last week's show, if Bill, and he continues to say that on any trade that he makes, he doesn't want to make the team worse. He does not want to trade him for anything less than a player that would replace his points or have some subsequent type of trade that would at least replace that. And so, there will come a point. Do you go back to him and try to offer him a Marty Nietzsche type contract where you maybe give him 2 years at a high IAV, and then you almost punt it? You could trade him in the middle of the season. You could trade him next summer. You could keep him. But right now, we'll see. But this is not the way the Wild envision this going in a league where everybody needs a center. And yet it seems like with the cap going up the way it is, that nobody wants to delete because everybody could afford that type of player. And I actually think this is going to become a league-wide almost problem. As more money is in the system and not enough, and everybody having the ability to add players, I think people are always going to want to trade futures. And I just think that's going to come a point now where the Wild, every single offseason, when they go out and want to either make trades or get free agency, they are going to have to turn this into a destination, because now it's no longer a summer where there's 6 teams that have money and everybody's going to wind up going to those 6 teams. Now it's going to be 30 teams that have money. And I do think that there's going to come a point where you've got to prove to these players that Minnesota is the place that you want to be.
Yeah. You drifted through about 14 different topics there.
Right.
So let's go back through a couple of them, because there's a couple of things. One is to go back to the Rossi, the trade value thing. And I just think there's no chance they make a trade exclusively for a pick. They can't do it. It's now you're hoping whatever that pick is, you're hoping that player 4 years from now is what Marco Rossi is right now. So I don't think there's any way that happens. And
unless you know that you got a second trip that you can flip that
trade.
team,
Exactly.
that pick to.
And that we're getting tight right now for that to be a factor. In terms of the value of these players, I think this is why we've seen so many teams be a little more active locking guys up earlier. Ryan Carter and I were talking about this late in the season, and he made the comment just that guys don't have to sign those prove-it bridge deals anymore. All these teams are right away just locking guys up for 7 and 8 years. And we had talked about it a few times before it ever popped into my head, where I said, I wonder if part of this is because they all know the cap's going up. So now they can lock in these guys at a dollar value that under a bigger cap is a tremendous team contract.
Yep. I.e. Matt Boldy.
Think about Matt Boldy. And now all of a sudden, Matt Boldy at $7 million is going to look like a tremendous bargain, because all these other teams on the free agent market are going to end up overpaying, as they always do. But overpaying now reaches a different level.
Absolutely. I do think that on that topic, something else just popped in my head, but on last week's show or 2 weeks ago, I pointed out how Brad Marchand just coincidentally, almost to the point, his first 3 years in the league with Marco Rossi is identical, even to the point that Marco's first 20 games, he had 1 assist, and so did Brad Marchand. And if you look at years 2 and 3, simple. And everybody's like, well, look at Brad Marchand, and look at the career that he had. The Wild need to do the same thing with Marco Rossi and not trade him away. The one big difference was on what you just said. Those second contracts didn't exist back then. If the Boston Bruins had to pay Brad Marchand after his first 2.5 years in the league, $8-9 million a year, who knows where Brad Marchand's career would have gone and where he would have been. The commitment now that teams have to make to these guys coming out of entry level is unlike anything that we saw back a decade ago.
And the statistical comparison's right, but Brad Marchand's probably thrown more cheap shots in his last 2 shifts than Marco Rossi has in his career.
Certainly on social media.
He's said more bad words. I know that. He's had more beer this week than Marco's maybe had in his life.
That is 100%.
So these are 2 different characters.
Marco doesn't drink, so that you nailed that one. We'll see where this goes. But right now I will say this, and this is talking to somebody that's close to Marco, is that there will need to be, like, Marco's a pro, and if he has to now sign this contract on whatever it's going to be, and the Wild, there will have to be some regained trust, because this is not just invented from the media. Marco knows this is going on because he's the one in these negotiations. He knows with no uncertainty that they are shopping him around the league right now, because his agent's involved in some of this. So now all of a sudden, and this is very much like Marty Necas last summer, and I sat down with Marty in the offseason, and it was clear after he signed that 2-year deal, that contract extension with Carolina, that feelings were not made up. So there will have to be some conversations between Marco and John Hines and probably Bill Guerin to try to clear that up.
For sure but this isn't the first time this has happened.
Yeah.
And
he's certainly
maybe
learned
it's gotten a little more contentious in this case, but players and teams negotiate all the time. Right. And in the negotiations, the team is always saying, you're not as good as this guy. You can't do this. You didn't bring this. they're pointing out every flaw they can imagine in order to drive the value down to make a deal. And then the moment they sign, you're the man. Now we expect you to be this. We think you're better than this guy. You're just as good as this guy. And this isn't the first time that a guy's had to sit in a room or hear his name mentioned in trade talks and then put it behind you and focus on playing.
Philip Gustafson last summer is a great example of that. The only difference here, though, is that this is sort of 3 years in a row that Marco knows that they've been looking at it. So I think that deep down, Marco doesn't believe that they believe that they like him. And so I think that's the only big thing here. But to your point, the one thing Marco's 100% learned here is that this is a business. And again, this is not that the Wild don't like him. It's that they like him at a certain price point. And they have to make a long-term investment in him right now if they go that route, and they just don't feel like they want to give him Matt Boldy's contract, which I could also see. But from the agent's point of view is that, it's not like comparables are very different. Like where the Wild are looking at like, well, we can't give you 7.5 because you're not a better player than Matt Boldy. They're looking at it as like, well, Matt Boldy signed 2 years ago when the cap was a very different thing. Now the cap's climbing. Other centers make this type of money, and that is the way that life works in the NHL. Bill Guerin probably knows that better than anybody because he had a couple contract disputes in his career as a player. And so this is just a different world that we are all in. We will see where it goes. Declan Chisholm is somebody that the Wild are going to be looking to re-sign. I talked to his people this week. So far, they haven't gotten into really any negotiations with the Wild. That should be an easy type of contract. We will see where that goes. But free agency, like everybody keeps on asking me who the Wild are going to sign as free agents. We will really can't determine what they really need until we see what happens this weekend, whether Marco's traded or somebody else is traded, what was brought in here. And then that'll determine whether or not they need to go after a winger. The one position where I do think the Wild are going to go after is we know one hole that they had at the end of the year is they traded Murat Huzandina. So we would think that they're going to go after a third or fourth line center on the open market. There's guys like Esamont, who I really like, Radek Faksa, Colin Blackwell, Nico Sturm. So there are going to be guys that the Wild are going to probably go after from that standpoint. But I don't think on July 1, the Christmas that Craig Leopold talked about last fall is something that it would be super exciting if all of a sudden they're like, hey, congratulations, Colin Blackwell signed a 3-year deal with the Wild. They're going to want to do some other stuff.
Well, and I don't know what the name is out there that could make it feel like Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you were just talking about forget about the money or the roster spot, like who is it? Who's the guy that would move the needle, that would excite fans, that would all of a sudden have a headline in the paper?
Let's just say he goes to the open market. I still think it gets done in Toronto, but let's just say John Tavares is somebody that was signed and somehow the Wild over 20 other teams convinced him to come to Minnesota on, say, Brock Nelson's type of contract. Would that excite you? I mean, he is coming off a 8-goal season with the Leafs.
I think that would be exciting. I mean, it would be more exciting than a Brock Nelson signing, but I don't know how possible it is. I don't even know if it is possible.
I think the only way to convince, like I always am, and this is kind of what I was saying before, is that the Wild are going to have to, and this is where you might disagree with me, but I am somebody that talks to a lot of players, especially during these runs that I cover, and they ask me a lot about the Minnesota Wild, and the perception out there is that they are this, it's not just with fans, that they're this middling team that can't get past the first round, 8 first-round losses in 10 years. And as more and more teams get money to spend, and the Wild are going to have to start really doing recruiting pitches in years beyond to get guys to come here, I think they're going to have to come out with ways to now out-recruit other teams that might be more appetizing to players. And the one thing that I think that you could do with a John Tavares to get him to maybe choose this team over that team is to really sell him on the family dynamics of raising kids here in Minnesota, playing youth hockey and all that stuff. He's got 3 young kids, maybe a 4th coming, I hear. And you just wonder if that's the type of thing that you are going to really have to get Marc-Andre Fleury on the phone and tell him, like, this is what you could do in Minnesota,
Yeah, and as we've talked over the course of the last couple of months, where there's been all this talk about the tax situation and advantages in other cities, that's one of the things I've always brought up, is that other cities have different advantages for different reasons, and that's one that Minnesota has had. A lot of players love to live here. A lot of players like to end their careers here, stay here after they're done playing. And, maybe that makes it a possibility. I have no idea what his situation is in Toronto or anything like that. But yeah, that would be one name. But other than that, Mitch Marner, but that's impossible.
He's going to Vegas.
That's
2 years, 12 and a half. That's what it's going to wind up being, something like that. And by the way, and on that topic, on the 2-year deal, we're talking about Connor McDavid and listening to him this week, and everybody talking about how he might sign short-term here. The one thing I wonder with Kirill, the Wild, we know that they're going to offer him bank here in a week or so. But maybe Kirill would want a 2-3 year deal. Like he signs a 2-year deal, and now what you're saying is, all right, Billy, I've signed now. With this 2-year extension puts me in Minnesota for 3 more years. Turn us into a winner. Like instead of me committing the rest of my career, so to speak here, not that he's not going to play past 37, but now you put that, and I do wonder in today's day and age with the cap, we know what the cap's going to be the next 3 years, 95, 103, and was it 112? But we don't know what it's going to explode to in years 4, 5, 6. I think it's going to continue to go up with expansion and things like that. All the world tournaments that they're going to be doing, the international tournaments every 2 years, start with the Olympics next year. Like you do wonder if more and more players are going to be like, why am I committing? Like it's nice to have security. It's nice to have, you're getting that $100 million. But what if Kirill Kaprizov in 3 years is actually a $22 million player, a 24? It just seems like that could be something that could be in Kirill's mind as well.
It may be, but if I'm the team, there's obvious reasons why you don't want to do that.
100%.
Because now you've got that uncertainty hanging over your head 2 years from now, and you have to keep the rest of your roster built in a way that you've got $20 million available to make that signing. So I don't know. I think the Wild and Kirill come to a long-term deal pretty quickly this summer.
Part of me thinks from a fan's perspective, I'd actually want him to sign 2 or 3 years, because then what it is putting him on the clock and it's putting the team on the clock. And now if you're a fan, you're kind of excited because now Bill Guerin essentially is being told, turn us into a winner in those 2-3 years. I just think it might be something that fans would actually appreciate, that he's doing that.
I think fans would love to see him sign for the rest of his career in a Wild sweater.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. 8 more years and then what's it get you? Or 3 more years where you're saying to Bill Guerin, you know what, I'm leaving if you don't turn us into a cup contender. I think fans for 25 years of this organization have dealt with the other side of it. I think they wouldn't mind. I see your point.
Yeah,
but I
don't
also
think a fan would say, "Yeah, I'll just take him for 3 years and hope for the best, and then potentially lose him."
But at least then it puts pressure on the organization to realize that they are on the clock for something. That's just one of those things I was thinking about on one of these phone calls in the last couple of days as I make the rounds. Of those fourth line centers I mentioned, anybody excite you? That Esamon was somebody that kind of. Colin Blackwell had a great playoff for Dallas.
I don't mind Isamon as a player. Nico Sturm actually is. I've always kind of liked him in a fourth line center role. Good face-off guy. Not anything that's going to excite fans necessarily, but he's a good player.
Yep. Bukestad is somebody. Good. That's more of a top middle six type guy. There's Steven Lorentz, who had a pretty good year for the Florida 2 years ago. Luke Cunnin. Sean Corrali is somebody the Wild went after once when Fenton was GM. Nick Cousins. There are guys out there, but there are some guys out there that right now, in free agency can win draws or penalty killing guys and all that type of stuff. One thing we were talking about this 2 or 3 podcasts ago, maybe even here, our last live show in early May. I'm kind of been harping on this Kirill Kaprizov penalty kill thing and whether or not they would kill him. I hear the coaches are talking about it, and it's going to be maybe potentially broached to Kirill come training camp.
It was broached to him last year.
Was it?
Well, yeah. They were. I know at one point they were. Hey, we're having all those guys sit in on all the meetings because we want to make sure that potentially they're ready if needed. And so I know that happened at some point early in the season last year, obviously early because it was before Kirill got hurt. And, so I think without a doubt, they'll make sure those guys are all prepared for it. I mean, and they did end up using Boldy, obviously, down the stretch, but those guys were in those meetings long before that.
And I was talking to somebody with the Wild yesterday about this, and what he likes about it too, and this is somebody in management, is that it just keeps power plays honest. Where like there are certain guys in your personnel that should be really good penalty killers, but they're not going to cause the power plays to feel.
They're not worried about a Yakov Trenyan breakaway.
There you go. I actually might have used the same analogy. Trying to think. There was one other thing that popped in my head here in this little soliloquy. What do you think? Like, would you ever consider Bukestad back here?
Well, I'd consider it for sure. Great guy and has shown at times, like last year, there were some times where he looked like he could still play.
Yeah, big time.
And so I would consider those guys, and it's a known commodity in terms of personality, which is something that Billy has always stressed. I would consider it. I don't know what the number would be, but I'd consider it for sure.
Yep. A lot of people ask me lately about Pajot. What do you think of him as a player? He's got 1 year left on his deal with the Islanders. Excellent penalty killer, great in the face-off circle, 40-point guy. Obviously, he's not somebody that if you're going to trade Rossi, you'd expect him to replace his production. No. But what do you think of him?
I like him as a player, but I like him in a Freddie Gaudreau role, third line, maybe fourth line center. And I think he brings more to the table than Gaudreau, but he's a good player, but he's not going to be I don't think he's a top six center.
Yeah. Part of me wonders.
Not permanently anyway.
I think he makes double though, Gaudreau. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you were going to trade Gaudreau this summer, he'd be a really good replacement in a trade because right shot, all that type of stuff. So we'll see. Wild made a coaching move this week, hiring Greg Cronin, the former Ducks coach in Iowa. I think we mentioned on last week's podcast that was a name that I kept on hearing. The Wild interviewed 7 people for this role. I think Jay Woodcroft was one of them. I assume Ben Simon, who is on the current Iowa staff and is apparently staying, was one of them. Greg obviously has had a long 38-year career, old school guy. We obviously heard some exit meeting talk and him being hard on the guys in the Ducks. But if you look at him and his career in the minors, he's been extremely successful. And you know what? Who cares if he holds players accountable and is hard on them? I'm perfectly fine with that.
Right. Especially in Iowa right now.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I mean, I will say this, the more people I talked to about Greg Cronin the last couple of days, and granted, there are people that know him, that are friendly with him, they love him. And I talked to somebody today that said that was around him when he was on Colorado and says he will be great down in Iowa. So we will see. Obviously, my only times ever interviewing him are in scrums.
And we usually base what their qualifications are and what they've done in interviews with you.
Exactly. But I don't know him from Adam, but I would say that's one of those things. We'll see. Lots of stuff going around about Brock Besser and him coming, close to coming to terms with Minnesota. That is not true. First of all, he is not able to come to terms with Minnesota until July 1, and you're not allowed to talk to these guys. I'm not saying that stuff doesn't happen, but I will say that Bill Daly has made it extremely clear that there should be no tampering this year, and if teams are caught, they're in deep trouble. I think the teams in the league are extremely aware that Bill is ready to make an example out of somebody. But I could tell you on this case, without a doubt, it is not true. Like it is 100. It is Brock Besser is not a shoe. The Wild will probably show interest, but the Wild can't make a commitment to Brock Besser until they figure out, first of all, what's going to happen this weekend. Let's just say they trade Rossi for an expensive equivalent winger. They're not going out and signing Brock. There's no terms that have been agreed upon. And the other thing from talking to people is that Brock is not 100% that he wants to play here. He wants to see what options are out there for him. I really talked to somebody that knows both sides today, and they put it at less than 50-50. So it is not, he might end up signing here at the end of the day, but it is surely not a guarantee.
And I think Besser brings something of interest to the table for sure, but it all depends on what happens in the center.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, you can come on up and ask questions and things like that. What do you think of the Florida Panthers and them, their whole celebration the last week and a half?
They've taken it to a new level.
Yeah.
And with some of the bad mouthing and of their opponents has surprised me a little bit. That very un-NHL like.
Yeah. See, that's how I feel too. Like last week we were joking about like I thought it was funny what Brad Marchand was doing on social media and calling out other teams. Very clear. I said to Chris Johnston, one of our writers who was tweeting about last week, pretty interesting. He wasn't going after the Leafs at all because I think a lot of us think that he has interest in playing there. But the stuff about F. McDavid and Connor McDavid, who from Kachuk, that is just not.
It doesn't.
It's not appropriate.
No,
I don't think. And I think that's the type of stuff that's gonna, he's gonna actually regret.
I thought some of the Marchand thanking other teams was mildly entertaining, but because that's kind of that misfit mentality. But when you start. It just was. I was surprised to see that it went the way it did and still going.
And I guarantee you that even like Bill Zito is just like, dudes, calm down. Like they're flicking off. It's just. There's a way to celebrate. I know this stuff has happened forever, and the difference now is social media. So everything is essentially live streamed, and I'm sure that. But Matthew's smart enough to know that type of stuff is not going to sit well, and I don't think a lot of. I don't think a lot of players in the league find it entertaining as well. Do you have flickering lights or leaky toilets? Well, that's not how summer's supposed to go. From runaway toilets and lukewarm water heaters to full home generator installs, Aquarius has your back. Right now, take $98 off any plumbing or electrical repair from Aquarius. That's $98 off any plumbing or electrical repair from Aquarius. That's right. Aquarius isn't just your heating and cooling experts. They don't just do water softeners. They don't put in just the Kinetico water osmosis systems that's under my sink and makes my water taste incredible. They do plumbing and electrical repair as well. They have friendly pros, fast service, and solutions to keep your home humming. Right now, visit AquariusHomeservices.com to book your service now. That's AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended, and don't forget to mention that Russo sent you.
Soak up sun, sand, and smart saving with a certificate at Royal Credit Union. Royal's 4.40% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate has guaranteed returns at maturity and no minimum opening balance for fast and easy opening. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/savesmart. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 5/27/25. Insured by NCUA.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a clamshell beach resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. Question.
Yeah, twofold question. How or what different players do you see from the Wild ending up on Olympic teams this year, if any? And then what do GMs, players, coaches that kind of do differently in a year like this to prepare for the Olympics? Just because, it's been such a long time since we've had NHL players in it.
Well, first of all, the NHL schedule comes out July 16th, and I'll be interested to take a look at it because the Wild are going to have a very odd schedule this year. I mean, I think the Ottawa Senators, when they were hosting World Juniors, had a 12-game road trip around. So the Wild are going to have a long road trip around the wintertime when obviously Xcel Energy Center is accounted for. And then that leads right into that Olympic break. So you better gain a cushion early in the season, sort of the way that they did this year, Anthony. In terms of Olympians on this team, I mean, obviously you got the Swedes and Eriksson, Gustafsson, and Brodin. Americans Faber and Boldy. I'm trying to think any other. I'm sure I'm forgetting Nico Sturm.
Nico
Sturm if he's here.
Well, there's because there's more countries involved. I'm trying to think like
Canada, nobody.
Would Rossi end up on Austria?
No. Remember, Austria didn't qualify when he was skipped to come here last summer early. He wasn't part of that. So and then he wasn't representing Austria in the World Championship for a similar reason. With his future, with no contract beyond this year, I don't think that he wanted to risk playing. There's an insurance issue when it comes to international hockey, and with him not having a contract, insurance would have been massive. And who's footing that bill? So, anybody else? I'm trying to think.
Not that I can think of.
Yeah. There might be somebody
maybe
obvious
in minor league guys that might be on some of those. The
Zeev Boyum, maybe. We'll see. So, question. Grab a T-shirt if you want, by the way.
Always love your show, guys. Thanks for
coming.
Thanks for doing this. Michael, we have a mutual friend, Liz Fedor. Senior editor, Twin City Business. So she texted me a question to ask.
Okay.
The Wild didn't get money from the legislature. Mm-hmm. When do you think the Wild will start renovating the arena? And will they pay for all the upgrades themselves?
Well, at least right now, unless there's another option, they sort of have no other choice. So she would probably have a better intel on that, on how this all works now. But yeah, that didn't go well. Again, the city technically owns the arena, so every cent that Craig Leopold was willing to put in anyway was not something that he was going to ever get back. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, there are certain things that sort of need to be done to that arena. And I'm a little surprised the state went this route. I mean, I'm not educated enough to figure out exactly how funds should be divvied, but that arena does a lot for the city of St. Paul and the state in general. And a lot of the upgrades that they're looking to do is not just stuff that's going to help them make revenue for the team. It's everything from the innards of the arena and the plumbing. I mean, last year the Pioneer press writer had to move in the press box because the freaking roof was leaking on his head, on his laptop.
It's all about the writers.
Yeah, so it's all about the writers, man.
Well, in light too of the news of the Timberwolves sale going through, are there any markets where NBA and NHL teams do share an arena?
There's
Madison
several.
Square Garden,
Chicago.
Yep.
LA.
Is that an option?
Well, let's put it this way. I think that is going to be the next step, because the Wild, even before this process, let me know that they will have options to leave Xcel Energy Center, and they're not talking about leaving the state. So right now, there's no other building that could take the Minnesota Wild. I mean, they're not moving to Target Center. So I think when they say that, and I don't think they're building another arena. So when they say that, I think they are potentially saying that as a threat that they could move into an arena with the Wolves if it's 100% financed by them. But who knows if A-Rod and those guys are going to want to do that too.
And there's still a big parking lot or vacant lot near the Mall of America.
Yeah. We'll see. Who's footing that bill, though, to build a $1 billion arena now?
Yeah, especially down there.
Yeah.
Switch it up on the defensive core.
Everybody's brought notes today.
Can you tell me who you think will be our starting six? Also, can you expand on, I think we heard last year that I believe it's Jurek was going to stay and work on his skating, and I heard rumor that Zeev was going to stay and work on building some, put on 5 or 10 pounds of muscle, and also on our goalies. Who do you believe will be the starting and backup goalie?
All right, stick around there for a second because I'm not going to remember all of that. What was your first question?
Can you discuss who you think is going to be the 6 starting defenseman?
I think it's set, Anthony. I mean, obviously Brodeen, Faber, Middleton, Spurgeon, Boyum, Juracek, Chisholm's going to be around, Bogosian's going to be around. So they got 8 guys. I am still, I've sort of been insinuating this. I think that Brodeen's dealing with something right now that might keep him out of the beginning of training camp or during training camp. We'll see. Hopefully I get to the bottom of that, but I'm pretty sure. So,
okay. And who stayed around this summer or is staying around this summer to work on the skating and building some muscle mass?
Right now, the guys that have been down there are Charlie Strammel, Jack Parrott, obviously Faber, Middleton, the guys that live here in the summer. Starting early next week, they're going to have a development camp. They're going to have a very different development camp this year where guys aren't really going on the ice, but a lot of these young guys are going to be here, including Zeev. So I do think that Zeev is going to spend a good chunk of his summer. I'm not saying he's not going to leave again after that camp, but they want him to put more than 5 to 10 pounds of muscle on. And then Juracek hasn't been back yet. He's still getting over the spleen, but he is supposed to come back significantly early to begin working out.
And our goalie situation, losing Fleury.
Yeah, it's going to be Gus and Wallstead. I mean, they're both signed, and they have to be here. I don't know who number 3 will be, but those 2 guys are 1, 2.
Yeah, they'll sign somebody to be the number 3. But it's going to need to be like it's not going to be like a Calvin Pickard, who just was the backup for Edmonton that played a lot of games in the playoffs. It's going to need to be somebody that's willing to be in Iowa, but somebody they're comfortable with to have as an insurance policy if Wallstedt struggles out of the gate. So it's going to be, it's going to be, for lack of a better memory, Andrew Hammond, who the Wild had once, where, they knew they were putting him in Iowa, but if they needed him, they could have him up here and things like that. So.
All right, thank you.
So you guys have talked about the forwards and skaters contract extensions, goalies. Gustafson, he's a UFA after next year. What's the word on him for this summer getting an extension, and what would it look like?
Joe Smith, my colleague, was supposed to talk to somebody that's close to him this week, and I never got an update if they actually connected. Bill Guerin at his end of the year presser said that it was an option to talk to him this summer. I definitely think that Bill right now has not gotten to that at all. I think that, wouldn't you agree, Anthony? He's got other priorities in mind, including Kaprizov. If it were me, I don't know. I mean, here's the one thing. If it were me, I'd wait and see how he starts this year. Because I think that if you want to extend him, you're still going to be able to get him at a pretty similar price, unless he's Connor Hellebuck-like. But don't you agree? There's really no rush. If you sign him to an extension, he's the old Gustafson, then you're going to regret it.
I think this year he showed a lot, but there's no urgency to do it right now.
Right, exactly. So that's sort of how I feel, but I haven't talked. We do have an availability with Billy on Thursday. In fact, we're going to get him Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then obviously on July 1st as well. So we'll have ample opportunity to talk to Bill in the next week, and I'll throw that at him.
I just been reading a lot that Guerin's been active a lot with the phones of different teams. If nothing gets done before the draft here, I know Billy Guerin loves his no move clauses, but is there a possibility where we sign Brock Besser or Nikolai Ehlers and put him in a package for someone like a David Pastrnak, go big game hunting?
I don't think that if Besser came here, you're right. I mean, he's not coming here without some sort of no trade protection. And same thing with Ehlers. These guys are going to get no moves, no trades, things like that. My guess is if he went that way, he would be doing it to keep those players. But one thing that you did say that I've been thinking a lot about, and Anthony, I don't know if you agree, and I know there's a lot of pressure on the Wild because everybody's been so patient for this summer. But if nothing happens right away, that doesn't mean that something won't eventually happen, whether it's down the road this summer or next year. I mean, the one weapon that the Wild would have if they didn't go and spend their money now is now they'll be able to accrue space in season and actually wait and make the right moves then, rather than force something now. The fan base might not like that because they've been all justifiably waiting for this summer, and I do think there's pressure on Bill because there's just this expectation. But if he does, like, I think it's more important to make the right decisions and potentially even wait till next summer when there could be much better players available. Like, what if, I'm just throwing this out there, but what if like Panarin and Kaprizov want to play together? Well, Panarin's a free agent in a year. Like, that would suck to waste that money on Nikolai Ehlers right now, and give him $8.5 million because now you can't go out and get Panarin. So I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
I think it's a dangerous summer that you could potentially overpay someone just because they might be the best available. Yeah. But I think Billy's going to be careful with that. I really do.
Yeah.
And I have another one for offer sheets. I know a lot of people talk about Matthew Nyes, but I don't know if you know anything about Winnipeg and Gabe Velarde being a restricted free agent. I think he'd be a good asset for us.
Yeah.
You can play him at center.
Yep. Being a restricted free agent, my guess is that they will figure out a way to keep him just because he had it was such an incredible trade that they made for Dubois, and he's fit in so perfectly well there. That I just don't think. The other thing is with the Wild, they traded their second round pick for 2026, and probably on any structure that you're going to give out a significant offer sheet to keep Winnipeg from matching, you're probably going to need to up it to include that. So without looking at the actual numbers right now, it's hard to. I don't think the Wild are going to be able to do an offer sheet unless it's somebody that they, know that they have all those picks for. So we'll see.
So I want to talk about something that you said previously when you were talking about signing Kaprizov maybe to a shorter term, and it would kind of put the team on the clock. Well, don't you think Billy Guerin is going to be on the clock now for what he does this summer, this year? Because they did a lot with very little for the last couple of years, but now he's under pressure to do more now that he has more, don't you think?
Yeah, I do agree. And you're right.
I think Billy's on the clock.
Yeah.
And I think Billy knows. I think Billy would say Billy's on the clock.
Yeah. When you go 4 years of cap hell and you ask fans and the owner to wait 4 years, and then if you don't start making significant moves to turn yourselves into a serious contender, it's going to create this pressure. And it doesn't matter if the GM is beloved by the owner or not. I mean, so we'll see where this goes. I think we all just sort of have to be patient and see where this goes. The one thing though is like it just feels like we know there's no free agents or few free agents that are going to move the needle that from a competitive point of view. So you just feel like they got to go the trade route, but then you look at the team and the players that that are very tradable, that have no protection. I don't see a real inkling for him, a desire for him to move those guys. So, I don't think Brodin's being traded this summer, and he's somebody that I think that would be tradable. And so then it's Jared Spurgeon, and I just don't hear any word out there that he's even being talked about by other teams. So, Goudreau's not getting you a ton, and so Rossi's their biggest trade chip. And right now, it just doesn't feel like they're being offered anything close to what Billy anticipated for him. So I'll be just really interested to see what happens this summer,
So Matt Zuccarello is not only inching closer to the end of his contract here, but closer to the end of his career. What do you think about Zuccarello's legacy with the Wild, and how do you think his possible retirement or expiration of contract affects things with Kaprizov and the Wild moving forward?
I think his legacy with the Wild is that he's been a terrific addition. And when signed, it wasn't a no-brainer. Not everybody thought it was a great deal at the time, a 5-year contract for a guy at that point in his career, but he's turned out to exceed expectations. I don't know that it affects Kirill a ton. I think Kirill knows if Matz was the same age as Kirill, it's different. If they're looking at, hey, we could play together for 10 years, that's different. I think I'd love to have him around, but I also understand there's going to be a point where I'm playing and he's not.
Yeah, exactly. He's not playing until he's 45, which would be what an 8-year extension with Kirill would be. So would giving him another year might, be something that Crow would be happy with, probably. And I'd be for that. I mean, I think that Mats is an incredibly important player to this team. He's beloved in that locker room. Obviously incredibly important to Krill, has been much more than a mentor to Krill. And so we'll see. The question is, what does Mats want? Like, I think Mats is, does he want to continue playing? He's had an unbelievable career for somebody that just jumped on the radar, at least for all of us, at the 2010 Olympics. So we'll see where it goes.
Going back to your Panarin thought.
That was, by the way, just off the top. Like, I'm not trying to start like rumors for
Tampering.
aggregators. Yeah. So same agent as Krill, though.
Do you think Wild fans should be concerned at all that if that is a thought, that he might want to go to New York and just play this year out?
That's not the way I meant it. I meant it more Panarin to come here. That is definitely not the way that I meant it. Panarin's also a UFA. So we'll see. I mean, New York seems to be in a sort of a state of rebuild here a bit. And so we'll see what happens. I think the Kirill really genuinely likes it here. The one thing I will say is I don't get the impression that they are having a lot of conversations, the two sides now. I thought it would be a really cool thing on July 1 to just announce it, especially, by the way, if your only move that day is like, here's Michael Esmont. It'd be fun to just announce like Kirill Kaprizov just signed an 8-year deal worth 15. But unless it's going to happen super quick, I don't get the impression that that is going to happen right on July 1. I think they've I don't think they've gotten down to the nitty gritty. I will say his agent keeps everything close to the vest, which is perfectly fine. So, if it is happening, I wouldn't know maybe from that side, but from the Wild side, I don't get the impression that that's been a priority right this second. So we'll see where it goes.
Hey guys, I know we've been talking a lot about the draft and free agency, but I kind of want to talk about Mikko Koivu real quick. So he was with us forever. We had him early. He had impact on the ice, impact off the ice. But every time I walk in the X and I look in the rafters, I can't help but think that we set the bar a little bit low for jersey retirement. And I'm wondering what you guys think about that. He's a great player for us, but he never really won anything with us. And I'd say there's plenty of players in the league and maybe even on the team that are better than him or will have better careers that will never get even close to a jersey retirement.
Anthony?
I respectfully decline the answer. No, I think it's I think when you go, there's a lot of arenas, and I can't think of any of the players off the top of my head, but there are a lot of arenas where I walk in and I'll look and there will be a name up there. I'll be, really, that guy? Jersey was retired, and sometimes it's because of how short a part of their career was with that team. Sometimes that's what the standard is here. So I think Mikko was a terrific player here. He was the first permanent long-term captain of the team. And, let's keep in mind that the organization's been here now 25 years, and they have one name up there. I mean, I don't know who would be more, nobody else has been more fitting over 25 years. And if you look at a lot of these other franchises that are maybe 40 years into their existence and they've got 8 jerseys hanging in the rafters. So I think the standard for the Wild is plenty high. If you hadn't retired his number, who would be the first? I mean, Jared Spurgeon's going to probably be a similar career type path. And if you didn't retire either of those jerseys, I mean, then what are you going to do? You're going to wait until Kirill retires? I mean, they're just maybe Matt Boldy. I mean, those are really the only guys that right now seem to be on a career trajectory that's tremendously different.
I guess my point in saying that was I don't feel like franchises should have pressure to force a retirement. It should be a special thing.
Yeah, well, and I think it was plenty special. I mean, the guy was a terrific player and a terrific captain and the face of the franchise for a long time.
I don't.
I mean, you could have gone like a Ring of Honor type thing rather than
that's
a jersey
how I think
retirement.
they should have done it.
And
I think you are not near. I think the majority of people, even the most diehard Mikko Koivu fans, agree with you. I really do. And that's probably what they should have done because now they've set the precedent. 46 has got to go up there.
Well,
right?
it's not a knock on him.
They have set the precedent that Like if 9's up there, 46 certainly
Right.
should be.
But so let's just say like how many more years is Spurgeon going to play? Another 5
3,
years?
yeah, I mean
Say.
3 here probably.
So let's say now you're 30 years into your franchise, and if those are the 2 names that you've hung from the rafters after 30 years, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that as a standard.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, especially 46 now, because 46 at that point would be here 18 years. I mean, this is going to be year 15 for him right now, coming up. Maybe even like it. Man, it's crazy because I still remember the day that Jared Spurgeon walked into that hotel in Calgary. So, like he's got to be up there. But to your point, like they should have just done a Ring of Honor, like because and then you could then put the Parisis and the Suitors, people that we know this organization is never going to want to put up there. So just because of the way it ended, Gaborik, like there's a reason why Gaborik didn't show up to the Mikko Koivu presser. I mean, to the retirement. It's not because he didn't love Mikko, but he's like, are you kidding me? Like how is 10 not up there? And you know what I mean? Like it was just one of those things. And he's somebody that has always been quick to answer the phone whenever the Wild want to do something. But it was pretty interesting that he never even responded to them on that. So when they invited people for that one. So
have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that? Or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs? That's where Onyx Hunt comes in, and it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country. From farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property, this app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it for free for 7 days. Download Onyx Hunt in the app or Google Play Store or visit onyxmaps.com/hunt to get started. If you're looking for a refreshing THC drink, well, check out Giggly. It tastes like your favorite cocktail with no aftertaste and just pure, bold flavor. It's made with real fruit juice and all natural ingredients. It's a Minnesota-made gem. You can find it at liquor stores and Quick Trip locations across Minnesota or get it shipped nationwide. Plus, with a new low pricing and low-calorie options, it's the perfect guilt-free sip. Try Giggly today.
We love supporting local businesses. We love working with local businesses. I started buying stuff at Twill in the Edina Galleria a long time ago. When I started this podcast network, I was really hoping I'd be able to work with Scott Dayton, the founder and owner of Twill, and I was lucky enough to be able to do so. Now my closet is pretty much all Twill stuff. I don't get free stuff. I don't get discounts. I don't ask for discounts. I go there and pay full freight because I want to support a local business also because the stuff is awesome. Just bought a fresh batch. I'm about to go on a vacation with my wife. Everything I'm packing is Twill stuff because it wears well. It's comfortable. It doesn't wrinkle on planes. It doesn't wrinkle in suitcases. It comes out looking good. It wears like iron, and I'm never going to have to replace it. It's just so simple. Everything from casual shoes to dressy shoes to golf stuff to dress stuff to suits. By the way, you get everything tailor fit, which really helps me out. And everything from, gopher stuff to winter stuff to summer stuff. They just have everything. So go to twillmn.com, sign up for email updates. They won't send you anything unless they have a very specific event they want you to know about. They won't spam you. And go in there and say hello. Tell them we sent you. It's just a pleasant group of knowledgeable people. They are experts at what they do. It's the best men's clothing store in Minnesota. Go check out Twill online and in person in the Edina Galleria.
Yep.
I've got 2 questions. The first one, I'll circle back to Rossi. I want to know if either of you or both of you think the most likely scenario at this point is that both his agent and Bill are basically, through either lack of interest or just they've devalued him to the point where he doesn't have the trade value they thought he had, that the most likely scenario is they're both waiting for an offer sheet because they're going to let the market set his value and his term.
Well, I know Michael feels differently than I don't feel that they devalued him. I think they maybe hurt his feelings, but I just think this is what people thought he was worth. And that's why from the beginning, I haven't been as convinced that it was automatic he was going to be traded, just because I didn't see a ton of teams that might be a fit. And I think what the Wild are finding this time around is similar to why I think they did such a brilliant job in the Kevin Fiala trade. Everybody in the league knew they had to trade him, and yet Billy was able to masterfully get a terrific deal. This is more what I would have expected at that time. Everybody knows that they're trying to move him, so nobody's willing to step up and blow your doors off with an offer when they've got a pretty good idea that Billy's in a spot where he really wants to make this trade. Maybe that's the only way they've devalued him, is just by making it so clear that they wanted to trade him. And I'm not sure how that happened necessarily, but I don't necessarily look at the way he was used in the playoffs and say, boy, this devalued Marco Rossi. I think everybody out there knows what his skill set is. He's a guy that scored 60 points in his second full season in the NHL.
I do think Vancouver is back in it, and I do think Carolina has a lot of interest. We'll see. I mean, maybe you can get creative too in other ways, just because your blue line's set now, like maybe you could come up with some sort of Rossi trade to Calgary that somehow brings an Anderson back and you send them a D as well. But you need a subsequent trade that's going to get you that 60-point guy. So there's ways to get creative. There's still 3 or 4 days before the draft. There's still an entire summer, even if it doesn't get done. I would say that the offer sheet, I'd be surprised at this point, because I don't see a team that's going to go out and give him a 7x7. And then if it's not something like that, the Wild would probably just match. And so I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, if Billy ends up having to take a first and a third, he ends up with egg on his face, doesn't he?
Well, I mean,
he doesn't want to trade
figures
for
out
futures.
But again, it's what he got to replace him. Like if it comes in another trade and you still get that first and third for Rossi and you've replaced him with a really good player, but in another trade that doesn't include Rossi, I mean, it's sort of the same exact thing, So again, you could trade Rossi right now for a first and a third. He could do it this second, but he would need that second trade to get what he wants back to not make this team worse. And so if that came and if that, Rossi trade in essence happened in an offer sheet for the same price, but you had that other trade anyway.
My other question involved, I know he's got a C on his chest, but do you think there's any possibility that Dylan Larkin can be gotten from the Red Wings?
Yeah, I would love it.
Doubtful.
Yeah, but doubtful. Same thing. Like,
we don't have what they need, or
I don't think they want to trade him.
I don't think Detroit wants to move him.
Yeah.
He and Stevie Y made up.
Well, I mean, I think that that wasn't a big deal. I think you want players that are going to be that honest, and he just said they didn't like what they didn't do at the at the trade deadline. Trust me, if Wild players were that honest, there'd be 7 guys that Billy would have to make up with right now. There were a lot of people that weren't exactly enthralled with the trade deadline this year on the Minnesota. So he just said the silent part out loud, which is, as beat writers, you're super excited about, So, Vinny's thoughts. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, Anthony texted me about 30 minutes ago asking if we should do Vinny's thoughts. This is Vinny, by the way.
Yeah.
And of course, Anthony somehow picked the 30 minutes. I didn't look at my phone. So
that's the first 30-minute stretch in phone history.
Crazy. I was so entertained by this podcast that I didn't look at my phone. I wasn't distracted.
I got 2 for you. First one is I think you thought that Gary Bettman was going to get the CBA done and announce it during the finals. Do you know what the holdup is or anything about it?
It's close. It's just outstanding. First of all, it's lawyerizing. They met throughout the finals, but you're right. I mean, they would even love it to get done this week, so it's done by the time the Board of Governors meet. Which is, I believe, Thursday. But it doesn't look like that's going to be done. It's right around the corner. It's just like outstanding issue. It's nothing that, like, the big stuff I hear is finalized, like a salary cap for the playoffs.
Thank God.
No more deferral, like stuff like that.
What's the length of it? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know, but I could tell you that I have never. And I've covered this league for a long time, and I've covered contract disputes with Goodenow and Saskin and Donald Fair. These two are like chummy. It's hilarious watching Marty Walsh and Gary Bettman talk. And like even we were waiting for the elevator forever to get upstairs for Game 6 of the final. And the two of them were right in front of me with all the security around and thing. And just listening to them shoot the breeze together, you could tell that they genuinely not just respect each other, but like each other. It's good to see that the players have hired somebody that I think
that sees the big picture.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and from a guy's perspective who needs games to be played to earn a paycheck, I appreciate the fact that there might not be labor stoppage.
Exactly. So, I mean, you'll remember, Vinny, when you were a little tyke in 2012. So how old would you have been in 2012?
I was a sophomore in high school.
So that's when Anthony became the play-by-play guy, and it was right before the work stoppage, right?
Right. It got delayed that year. It was actually your junior year. It was AJ's senior year that fall. And I got hired in the spring, and then there was a lockout, so I didn't get to start until January.
And Anthony tells a story, and your mom tells a story about how like Margot was like living on every word that I wrote in my blogs about the work stoppage because she needed Anthony out of the house.
Well, she did. She really was anxious for a paycheck, but and didn't know you really all that well at that point.
Yeah.
And so every morning, did you see what Russo posted on Twitter? No, strangely, I haven't read it yet, but he says it's not going to be done yet. It's not going to be done for another week. So we lived and died with that for a while.
Yeah.
The second one is, do you know anything about Yurov's offseason? Is he training in Minnesota? Is he buddies with Kaprizov, training with him, or anything what he's doing?
So from social media, I know that Kaprizov's still in Russia and hanging out. Yurov at some point is coming over here, but he's going to be working out in Connecticut, where his agent has a trainer and other players that he has, the Sturkins of the world and players like that. So he'll be pretty much working there and then coming here well before training camp to get. But in terms of when he comes over to the United States, he's going to be working out on the East Coast.
If you had to guess right now, where is Yurov in the Wild's opening night roster?
I think he's second line center. I think he's second line center, unless Rossi's here. Obviously, then what would be really exciting is to start him on the wing. Even, I don't know, because a lot of it's obviously going to depend on Rossi. But if Rossi's gone, I think he is probably the second, third line center. Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's going to take a while, but they have every reason to give this guy every ample opportunity. But you're right. I mean, he's got to. I know that you probably think that they're going to slow play him a bit, right?
No, I don't. I haven't watched any of his. I don't know anything about his game, so I was just kind of curious if you thought I was going to ask Vinny before he left what his thoughts were on his golf tournament this weekend. What he places the odds on the blue team in the Donkey Classic? -150.
Wow,
that means my team's the underdog.
Wow, so you're not
Vinny.
on the.
We're on opposite teams. It's a big weekend this weekend.
How would the odds tilt in the bocce ball tournament if it was involved?
If you were involved, you would be there are 8 teams. You would be the 8th seed, no matter who your partner is. But we had AJ and I have been a partnership almost every year. We've won it a couple times. We've finished second a couple times. Vinny and the neighbor, Michael Waters, they've been in the hunt. I think last year was the other 2 Waters boys that won. Chunk and Johnny Agua, who I know are big followers of yours. So it's been a competitive event. Greenhorn and Chadley were in the mix last year toward the end.
I was in one of your bocce ball tournaments once.
You've been in the tournament for
a
this
couple
before.
times, yeah.
We just sent out a thing with the top 3 finishers that your name was never in there. So I think you might have been the 8th seed if you were in it this year.
Yeah, I did finally get paid on fantasy. You know what I did have the other day? I had a nice little giant win in poker playing a tournament the other day. So that was pretty fun.
That's what you're doing with your free time now?
This one was
this isn't poker in person, is it?
No, it was. And
really?
I will say that I'm the only one that was constantly looking at my phone during it, to the point that I was playing with a bunch of strangers and at
I didn't
the
even
final
think that was
table.
allowed.
Yeah, no, it wasn't here in Minnesota.
Oh,
so
no, I mean to look at your phone during a
no,
poker
it
game
is now. It's
really?
totally different than it back in the day. Like I remember when I used to actually go to this casino as a kid. Pre-social media, I'd maybe hung out there after a game right until about 7 a.m., go home for 2 or 3 hours, go back to practice. A lot down in that's how I started my career in Florida. But anyway, at this place, but I remember, your phone could not come out of your pocket, and that was really pre like everybody having a cell phone. I probably had a beeper back then. But this time, I mean, it's something crazy, the stuff that people have in poker tournaments now. I saw a video today of somebody that had a dog on a table, like resting on her chips. So, question. This will be the final question of the episode.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So, if I'm not mistaken, Vancouver has offered us before for Rossi, and Pedersen's no trade doesn't kick in till July 1. Could we move something like a Rossi and an Ogren for Pedersen? Is that, something that could happen, throw Ogren in a trade, or do you think something's more likely with, like you said, a 3-team during the draft or something?
Yeah. From what I hear from Vancouver, and it's been confirmed by Pierre LeBrun as well, is that they right now, your rationale is 100% accurate. That if Vancouver were going to move him, they have essentially a week that they can move him anywhere. But right now, it sure sounds like Adam Foote and him have met, and he also looks like he's coming into camp in really good shape. Obviously, he's got 2 more months. I think they feel like the one biggest thing that they were not happy with last year was clearly his fitness level, and I think that has gotten through to him. And everything we're hearing is that they are not going to trade him. Would, to your point, that make the most sense if you're going to deal with Vancouver? Probably. But right now I'm just trusting that nothing is going to change here in the next week and that they are going to move him. And Pierre actually reported, I believe again today, that he hears again from his sources that Vancouver's not looking to move to Pedersen. And that's something I heard a week ago, and that he reported, Pierre also reported a couple of weeks ago as well. So
is there an organization out there that's changed directions more often than Vancouver in the last, say, 5-6 years? It's unbelievable.
It really is. And yesterday, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that Rick Tocchet loved Elias, and I'll be interested to see how he deals with Zegras too.
Right. I still can't believe that's the landing spot.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be the perfect fit. Yeah. And he'll be the guy that finally
they didn't give
gets
up a
his
lot
attention.
for him.
I'm not sure.
His biggest thing in the last couple of years has been mostly injuries and things like that. But it just like I will say, like a couple of years ago, I thought he was going to be true stud, and maybe he's still super young and he's got that ability. He's going to a place that obviously there's going to be pressure on Rick to actually play him and give him opportunity, because they made this trade. They didn't give up a ton for him, which also should remind you like how hard it is to make trades right now. And to get to put a bow on what I was saying at the beginning is I do think that's going to be the norm now in the NHL. Obviously, Zegras is a little different story because they've been trying to get rid of him and his stock has dropped so dramatically. But I just think for the next, as the cap goes up and up and up, I just think it's going to be awfully harder to make trades when everybody has money, and what they're going to want to give up is either bad contracts or futures, because they don't want to subtract. Everybody's trying to get better. And now that the cap's going up, there's no reason that you have to make hockey player for hockey player type trades. And I think that is the one area where, and maybe I'll be proven wrong here if they make a trade in the next 4 days, something that we all really are intrigued by. But I think that's the one area where Bill Guerin probably just, didn't anticipate and this is just the beginning of the cap rising. It's just going to continue to go up and up and up. So we will see. By the way, I don't know if everybody listens to the 32 Thoughts podcast, but Matt Schaefer, who's the potential number 1 pick in Friday's draft, Anthony, was on there, and he was unbelievable. Like, he lost in the same year a couple of years ago, his mom and his billet mom. And what a well-spoken kid. Just unbelievable. But one thing he said in there was how tight he's become with the Folignos. So I texted Marcus about this. I'm like, do you work out with him or something? And it turns out, and I can't wait to write this story eventually once I get with, whether it's this weekend with Matt Schaefer or at some point. Marcus and Nick's mom died of cancer, 8 or 9 years ago, I guess it is. And Pat Morris, who's also Schaefer's going to be his agent, put him in touch. He also represents the Folignos. He put the player in touch with the Folignos, and basically they have now hit it off. And just the advice and the guidance that the Folignos have both given him, it was really touching just texting with Marcus about it. So listen to this podcast. You'll be blown away about just how mature this kid is. Thanks to our sponsors. And by the way, we will have one live show at the end of July, and we will also have one live show in August as well. So pay attention to our When I say our, I mean mine. Social media, you will know, because Anthony doesn't even think that it needs to be retweeted when I
just
tweet
text
that.
me and I'll retweet
Yeah,
it.
exactly. So thanks so much to our sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Clamshell Beach Resorts, Giggly THC Beverages, Onyx Maps, Twill in the Edina Galleria, and Royal Credit Union. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive